So today's conversation is sponsored by Lacroix Institute of Technology. A little bit about Lacroix Institute. It's an institution focused on training individuals who are looking to start or grow careers in technology. Lacroix Institute is approved by the IIBA as a premier endorsed education partner. It's also approved as a training organization here in the province of Quebec. It's also an organization that provides very specific, practical, affordable, and relevant courses with regards to technology. And there's financing available. So those of you who are thinking of starting or growing your careers in technology, you can check out what Lacroix Institute of Technology offers.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And I'm super happy to be a co-host for this webinar with our wonderful host, Dr. Elliot Simo, who is the president at the Lacroix Institute of Technology in Canada and also president at Digital Transformation Center Canada. And he's a senior business analyst, which is the reason why you want to pay some very close attention today when we talk about the collaboration that happen in an agile team between the business analyst, PO, and all of that. And he has about 15 plus years of experience. So you're not just listening to any other person, but you're listening to someone who is going to be giving you practical experience, MBA and a doctorate in business administration, where he focused on technology strategy. And my organization has benefited from his setup. So I can tell you also from a practical point of view that he's not just someone who talks the theory, he also does that and do that. What some of his main skills, which we are going to talk in practice today, not just read, is crafting technology strategy, deploying software such as ERP and CRM. I know a lot of you have been hearing about some of this software when you go for interviews. So it's your opportunity today to ask him to get some more deeper understanding on that, making business processes better.
Thank you very much, Dr. Francis. And so it's my turn to introduce my friend, Dr. Francis Bunia. He's a senior agile coach and trainer. A lot of you already know him from the different social media platforms, doing a great job there. His experience in this domain spans way more than 10 years, but I could capture only the last 10 years. But it's way more than that. He has had a lot of school under his belt, a bachelor's, master's, and PhD degree. He has a lot of certifications as well, Safe, Agile, PMP, Six Sigma Black Belt, you name it. There's probably some more that we missed out when we captured Dr. Francis' profile here. But all of these certifications and certificates help him to be a very effective coach, a very effective trainer, and a community builder. You can see that he's very, very involved in community building as well. One thing which probably a lot of you don't know is that Dr. Francis loves to write books. He has a lot of books he has written, either authored or co-authored. He was actually my book coach, just so you know, a book which I'm still to publish. But Dr. Francis has been a wonderful coach in that regard. He has helped so many people aside from myself when it comes to book coaching and publishing. So if you're thinking of writing books or exploring that section, you can contact me for more information. And of course, he's a family man. When he's not working and doing so many things, he's busy with his family. His skills are making projects work well using Agile. That's something he does super well. Coaching and training people on Agile and Scrum, you can see him everywhere doing that. Managing changes in organizations, he knows where to spot opportunities and how to move people towards change, and handling big projects with skilled Agile methods. So that's a quick resume about our wonderful co-host, whom I'm very honored to be speaking alongside with today. So earlier, Dr. Francis mentioned one of my areas of expertise being ERP and CRM deployment, and that's very different from development. So the software development entails creating, designing, coding, pretty much writing code about a software. And so you're starting from scratch. And so if it's an ERP system, you're writing it from scratch. There's an architecture, but there's nothing that exists like it. On the other hand, deployment means the software has been written and it's what you already have. That's what we probably buy, software as a service, what we call cloud systems and all of that. So it's already there. What we need to do is to make sure that people use it. And that's where I come in. So helping people to implement, to deploy, to use software systems that have been, developed. And you use very different methods in both approaches. They look similar, but they are very different in how you approach them. And so today the focus would not really be on the deployment side because you have a lot less agile in the deployment. It's going to be mostly on the development side. That's where we would focus our conversations today because there's a lot of agile there and there's a lot of room and opportunity when it comes to software development. And so let's talk a little bit about agile. Agile is just one of many ways to develop software. So remember, we've talked about software development. And so Agile is just one. You have so many ways by which you can develop software, including Waterfall. So Waterfall is one of the very well-known but very old, methodologies that exist out there. And you have so many other methodologies that exist. But there's a reason why we're talking about Agile, because Agile is becoming the flagship, methodology for so many reasons. It's been around for a long time, but it's recently in the last 5 to 10 years that companies have really started, implementing different things with regards to Agile. And so Agile is a thing now because it's flexible, it's iterative. You can deploy it quickly. You have quick value from deploying Agile. The big thing there is that it emphasizes collaboration, and you can, release your functionalities or your product in small chunks. And so instead of waiting to release the full thing at the end when nobody has seen it and had the chance to provide feedback, now you can release the door, you can release the window, you can release some tiles. And slowly but surely, the end user starts having an impression of what the final product would look like and will start providing you feedback so that at the end of the day, you get a product that everybody is happy with and everybody approves. And so we're going to be talking a lot more about those differences, those scenarios, especially with regards to collaboration, because that's where you have the biggest opportunity for learning and improvement. So remember, I talked about Agile as one of the methodologies for software development. So typically in the software, as I think in the audience here, we have a bunch of people from different backgrounds. So Dr. Francis, we have business analysts in the audience, Scrum Masters, we have product owners, software developers, project managers, Agile, just people who are interested in Agile enthusiasts, and IT professionals. So it's a it's a broad audience, and people are connecting from different parts of the world. So first of all, thank you very much for joining us today. And so we're talking about Agile being one of the ways by which you can develop software. Besides Agile, you have Waterfall and so many others. But today, let's focus on the two most popular methodologies. Agile and Waterfall are like neighbors. They live very close by each other.
Yeah.
They have visible differences, just like your house looks very different from your neighbor's house, even from the look and feel, and from the way you do things is very different. But you all live in the same neighborhood, so the goal is obviously to produce pizza. I'm kidding. It's not just for pizza. It's for software. It's for any product. And so there's always a goal. There's always a project. A project is something that starts and ends. And so with Waterfall, the main thing that you see there is that the requirements are planned in advance. Things are, planned in advance, and everything moves in sequence right to the final destination here, which is the product. With Agile is different in the sense that we're not waiting for the final product. We release it in chunks, in small chunks. And when you add up those small releases, it forms the full product. And so they're different. With Waterfall, you have a lot of the risk accumulating and increasing towards the end of the project. Because imagine that you miss something. If we're trying to bake pizza and the client asks for, I don't know, no meat, no protein, and you go ahead and put in all the meat and every protein you find, at the end of the day, the client is going to reject it. So you would have spent money producing a pizza which nobody's going to eat. With Agile, the client starts seeing what the pizza would look like. They start tasting a little bit of the pizza. It's not full yet, but they have an idea, and so they can comment, they can give feedback, they can do a lot of things. And so the risk is spread out across the different phases of the project. And so you don't have this huge phase in the project where the risk is very, very high. Those are the two main differences between Waterfall and Agile. And I would like you to really pay attention, because when Dr. Francis starts getting into the details there, this distinction would really, really be helpful. So that's the story of our two neighbors. Now, we've talked about methodologies. So we've talked broadly about Agile, we've talked broadly about Waterfall, and you guys know that we could break them down. For example, with Agile, you have so many methodologies. Agile itself is like a mindset, but inside Agile, inside that world, you have many ways of doing things. And so the most popular ones are what you probably hear all around: Scrum and Scrum Masters, Kanban, Extreme Programming, Skilled Agile, and there's probably so many more, methodologies and ways of doing things that we could be able to speak to. So, Dr. Francis, you are the coach, you are the Agile expert. What are you seeing out there when it comes to methodologies regarding Agile? Have we captured everything? Is there anything else to add to what we're showing our audience?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Simo. I think the top framework out there, we already captured them: Kanban, Scrum, and Sage. Extreme programming most often doesn't really feature out as a standalone framework, but it's embedded in most of these practices. But we also have some other framework that are kind of unique to specific organizations. They might not really be popular out there. For instance, large scale Scrum, right? And it's not so different. It's just we prefer to call these pop and not we don't want to call it, how they call it, the difference between pop. Some people call it uh this like Coca-Cola, right? I can call it Coke, yeah. You say, okay, now I'm not gonna call this Coke. I want to give it a different name. Right. I want to call it soda. Right. Some people call it soda.
Yes.
So most of this framework is just a distinction. For instance, Scrum at scale simply say, okay, we want everyone to come to one backlog and plan, but we're still gonna do the same thing. Now we have something like Krista. We want everything to decide every approach they're gonna use. We don't want a common approach. So everything, be flexible, pick all the tools you want to use, do it on your own part. And then we have Spotify. So we have many people that are coming up with their own framework. But then for the framework that are kind of global and standardized, we see Scrum, we see Kanban, we see Scale, Agile, then we see Lean. For many others, these are more or less companies who have the financial base and they're also trying to build that. Maybe in future, they might gain more strength as Scrum and Safe and also come into the spotlight. But for now, let's stick with this one.
Amazing insights. So, aside from Scrum, Kanban, Skilled Agile Framework, I heard you mention Lean, which is
Yes,
a concept very close to Six Sigma.
yeah,
Uh, I heard you mention Less
let's,
and
yeah,
Crystal,
Krista.
being methodologies that you're seeing, that your students, that your clients are using, but they're not as popular or
Yeah,
as widespread as Scrum, Kanban, and Skilled Agile Framework.
yeah. There's also Scrum at scale that is
Okay,
trying to also gain its way into the market, which is what actually taking some very quick research on that as well. Scrum at scale.
Scrum at Scale.
SAS. Yeah.
Scrum at Scale. So the ones that are the most popular, Scrum, Kanban, Skilled Agile, why do you think they are the most popular? Is it that the cost of implementing the other ones is higher? Is it that the methodologies are not really, locked in? Why do you think these three ones, are the most popular?
All right. When it comes to popularity, I would not think it's because they are the best out there. It's because they are the most organized. They have gained the strategy on how to sell the concept to people. Now, we all understand that the concept of agile, which is a flexibility, came by a couple of people having vacation, deciding to set out 4 values and 12 principles. We bought into it, right? And
Mhm.
give people the flexibility to build strategy on how we could implement all of these agile principles. And then Scrum came in, which was like the first main concept that a lot of people found flexible. Why was Scrum, which is still one of the most accepted worldwide, still the most outstanding? It makes things very simple, and it also gives power to the customer, which is why even customer are pushing the company, hey, we want to go by Scrum. If you don't deliver to us by Scrum, we're gonna switch you. So, which is the reason why Scrum is going to continually gain ground. Now we have Safe, which is very strong in the North America, Canada, and in North America. Why? Because they have been able to tap into the government system and also have been able to build some very strong partnership with PMP. And they've also invested a lot of knowledge in their framework, make it easy and giving a lot of people the power, which is by far why I think they're going to be the leading within the next 5 years. The flexibility for people to get in, go to the level of trainer and be able to become entrepreneur in the space, which is the power you can give almost everyone, which is why they are positioned now as the fastest growing framework within the agile field.
And that's the Skilled Agile Framework, SAFE.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm, amazing insights. So, Well, that's the reason why we have an expert here, because it's good to talk about some of these topics high level, but it's even better to get into the reasons why they are different from one another, just so you know that when you're trying to specialize, especially those who are new to the profession, if you're trying to specialize, if you're trying to find ways to stand out, you can see why maybe your application would stand out better than somebody's own application if you put your hand on the right frameworks and the right methodologies. So that's really insightful, Dr. Francis. So if we continue in that same you know that same vein, that kind of conversation, so let's talk about collaboration. Collaboration is quite important when it comes to agile, because uh, from the way we see it, there's no way by which you can achieve anything without collaboration. Uh, Agile is based on getting a bunch of people together who have different skills or from different teams to collaborate, to work together to produce one thing. And if that's the key word, then um, let's focus on collaboration. So what's collaboration here? Given that it's the cornerstone really of Agile, uh, it's important to focus on it because it empowers cross-functional teams. It helps to create a shared understanding of what the requirement is, what the goal is. It helps, to facilitate communication between different people, adapt to change. You can only adapt if we're collaborating,
Yeah.
because we have different needs and wants. Customer satisfaction. Uh, Collaboration helps with problem solving. If we don't collaborate, we'll never agree to disagree.
That's
Sometimes we just have to find common ground. For ownership and accountability, who does what, who's responsible for what. We need to collaborate in order to define those roles. We need to collaborate to share knowledge, such as what we're doing now. I believe if Dr. Francis and I were not collaborating, we would never be able to have these conversations. For quick decision making, sometimes a quick phone call or just a chat at the coffee machine could help solve big problems. To mitigate risks, if you start seeing scope creep, or if some of the objectives of the project are changing too fast. For continuous improvement after the project, we need to keep improving the functionalities, and of course to build trust. And so, what are you seeing with regards to collaboration in the field, Dr. Francis? How important is this, and what are some of the types of collaboration techniques that you're seeing out there with your students and your clients?
all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Timo. Collaboration is indeed the heart of Agile, because when we talk about Agile, we're talking about working with different people. We're talking about collaborating with the customer, the end user, whosoever is engaged within the shortest possible time. Right. We promise to actually deliver in as short as 2 weeks. We want you to see what we have been working on. Now, just imagine if we don't create an environment where we can collaborate. One of the key questions you definitely will not miss if you go in any of the Agile interview, it's about how do you ensure that you deliver to the client on time? How do you ensure that your team is performing? How do you ensure that your team commit to the right work? All of this is just like, what are your means of ensuring collaboration? Right. And collaboration, it's about the having an agreeable conversation. Right. It's not we having a conversation, it's an agreeable conversation which comes with commitment. Right. I can say, okay, I'm gonna be uh at this webinar at, let's say, 10 a.m. and I show up at midday. Now it doesn't serve the purpose. We actually communicated, but there was no commitment in there. So one of the biggest issues we have with delivering, especially when we work in an actual environment, is that lack of collaboration, which means that most often if you don't pull along well with your PO or so, you probably might deliberately just ensure that you wait until one day after the spring planning to go reorganize the backlog and start bringing in different, like, hey, we have some changes, and you start having a good time. Now, this is practicality, right? We not all the team. That's why it's very important to build that relationship, right? If we don't have collaboration, it's very difficult. So I cannot overemphasize on this. In collaboration, come by us building the soft skills. Just be yourself. Don't try to do it. Yeah.
Amazing, wonderful insights there. So speaking about collaboration, we collaborate with the use of events, and we have a lot of different types of events in the agile world. Some of them are known by people who don't work in agile, but if you're in an agile environment, typically you would have either led, been a part of, or heard about one of these events on your screen, be it a sprint planning, a daily stand up, sprint review, sprint retro, or retrospective, backlog refinement, as Dr. Francis just mentioned, release planning, big room planning, and an increment review. So, how do we, utilize these different events, Dr. Francis? Can you shed us some light on how these events actually happen in an enterprise setting? What happens, for example, during a sprint planning?
Okay. Great question. And to all our audience, you can utilize the Q&A session to ask any question if you need to. You don't have to wait to the end
Sure.
of the presentation. So as we're moving along, you have a question, just put it in there. We'll be happy to address that. All right. So we have all of these great events, right? The reason they are kind of partition is because they have different goals. For instance, the sprint planning help us to set goals on what we want to do. Goals. This is what we want to achieve within this period. Now, when we set those goals, the customer is expecting us to deliver what we are kind of set to accomplish. And then we have the daily stand up that help us to interact and keep the communication and the collaboration ongoing in order to achieve these goals. And then we have, uh, I'll talk about the backlog refinement because it should come in the middle of the conversation. It helps us to prepare for the next planning cycle. With Agile, we plan in smaller circles. So we plan to deliver in 2 weeks, in 1 week, in 3 weeks, maximum 1 month. But averagely across most of the industries, you're going to see 2 weeks. So if you're planning to deliver within 2 weeks, by the middle of the week, you should already start thinking about how the next planning will look like, which is why the spring planning or iteration planning comes in the middle. Now, on when you're closing out a planning cycle, you want to review. You review what you actually committed to during your spring planning together with your stakeholders, right? Just to ensure. Now, this is planned to ensure that we are goal oriented and we are all keeping to our word. You agree with me that if I have a conversation with you and there is no follow up for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, that actually go to a dead end.
Yeah.
So this is our plan to ensure that we can stay on track. And of course, we have the one of the powerful one retrospective. The reason most people don't improve in any aspect of their life is they don't take time to think about how they are doing things and to actually listen from others on how they can improve. So we try to figure stuff in our own brain. We give ourselves the correction. Now, because of that, we're not creating so much room to retrospect. So you see, all of these events are positioned on how we can support the delivery. But then the common one, which a lot of people are not definitely familiar with, the release planning. Now, release planning would not really happen within shorter cycle because that is what you commit to when you get the business buy-in with the customer. You want to commit to them how you plan to deliver the entire solution. Is it every 3 months? Is it every 1 week? So that buy-in come in before we understand the capacity and the resources we need in order to accomplish the work. Right. And then we have also the PI planning. Now, PI planning comes in when we have a product to deliver and we require multiple teams that need to collaborate at the same time for us to meet our goal, which means that we might have a future, we have about 5 different teams that need to collaborate on that future, which means we need to have another layer of planning before the normal planning at the team level. So PI planning now is what pushes us to go in a safe environment. We'll talk about stay agile, which means we're taking it one level up. So at the level of scale, we have 2 circles. The normal circle you have at the level of the team, and the circle you have including the managers and those engaged in release planning. Now, incremental review, you will not really have this as a common or as an outstanding event, but it's about management thinking about how have we been able to satisfy our customer? Have we been doing the right thing? Are they satisfied? And then this feedback is brought back to the team, and your managers can start having assessment. Okay, teams is not doing good. The team is doing good. We are satisfied with whatsoever is going on. So that's like
Amazing.
summary of that.
Amazing. And so I'm sure there are a lot more event types, but these are certainly the main types of events that we see across different agile environments. And given that we're talking about collaboration, we've talked about methodologies in agile, we've talked about software development as the focus of today. We've talked about collaboration being the bedrock of any agile project or agile delivery initiative. And so, in the sense of collaboration, let's talk about roles. Who are those who collaborate? And so, typically, from what we gather, uh, collaboration happens along one of these lines. So you have customers or users who would benefit from the product. You have stakeholders who are people with a vested interest in the project, in the initiative. Uh, so they might have a vested interest in the success or the failure of the project. So you might have stakeholders who want the project to fail for many reasons, but I think most stakeholders always want the project to succeed. Then you have the development team. It's not just programmers and software engineers. You have a lot of other people who are part of the development team, like QA testers, like user experience designers, like developers themselves. And then you have the Scrum Master. That's one of the most visible roles in Agile, the Scrum Master. And of course, the product or the product owner. And so these are the most common roles that we see. And so I would like to bring now back the focus to business analysis. Of these roles, you don't see the business analyst. So the business analyst would mostly be considered a supporting role and not a core or a main role. However, their supporting role is very important for many reasons, because the business analyst or business analysis work is also performed by the product owner. And so if you look across organizations that practice business analysis, don't look at the titles, because sometimes the titles could be misleading. And so we'll talk a little bit more about some of those differences. I just want to mention that this is what we hope to see, a typical scenario. It's not a one size fit all. Organizations behave in different ways depending on their circumstances. And so they would name roles depending on their circumstances. They will name, titles differently. And so this is just a foundation for the next conversation that we're going to be having about the business analyst. So let's talk about the business analyst. You may have seen this video going around social media. It's a very typical example of requirements uh, missed. And so the client is saying something, the business analyst is hearing something, the developer is hearing something, and they are coding something else. You can see already from the get-go, right from the business analyst, it's not an 8, it's a head with maybe an eye or 2 eyes. And so there is already a missed opportunity to do something correctly. And so that's why we emphasize the collaboration. That's why it's important for them to talk, to attend those events, and share ideas on how to move those requirements forward, be they through user stories or in any other way by which the specialist will be able to capture those requirements. But this is a classic example of requirements has gone wrong. And so business analysis is not the title. Many people have the title business analyst. For many years of my work experience, I did not have the title business analyst, but I was performing the functions of a business analyst. And I knew only many years after, when I actually came in contact with the IIBA, and I started reflecting, doing a retro of my work experience, and I realized that, I've been practicing business analysis without knowing. So it's a discipline. It's not just a title. And there's so many business analysts who don't have the title business analyst. And so this really serves like a foundation for the next conversations we'll have. And so there is a definition of who a business analyst is. It's the person who performs business analysis tasks. And you can see some of those tasks. Strong business acumen. You should have a very good understanding of how businesses make money and how companies operate. You should be able to do analysis, analyzing needs and solutions and getting them to requirements. You should be able to summarize, synthesize information, make recommendations, lead, manage projects, have a strategic view of things. You should be agile. You should be comfortable with change, because the business analyst is by default the change maker. You should be able to collaborate with others and spearhead initiatives. Now you might tell yourself, well, that sounds like those people there. It's true, it sounds like them. They might actually be performing all of those functions, if not most of them. So companies call the role differently. In some companies, you will be called a consultant, a functional consultant, a process analyst. Some companies actually call their product owners business analysts. And so you would see the title product owner, but the job description is that of a business analyst, and vice versa. And some companies call business analysts proxy product owners. And so, Dr. Francis, what are you seeing there when it comes to titles? Because this is one of the main reasons why we actually have the webinar. You have a lot of confusion here. And what are you seeing with companies and with your clients?
I had myself on mute. That's an interesting one. One of the things we see in the field is that um, things don't so much align the way they are defined theoretically. Many companies try to coin different rules to fit what they need. You can have someone with a title, I know someone with a title Scrum Master, but what they're doing is purely the job of a business analyst, which means that they definitely don't have a PO, and they need to ensure that they evaluate almost all the different aspects of the initiative to the futures, to the user story, and make sure that they go out rightly. So they get now a different customized training. Now, I've also seen environments where we have the PO, the business analyst, and the Scrum Master all working in the same team. But then you also see the rules are not clearly defined. There's a lot of overlapping. So most of this is now being sorted out by work agreement on, okay, this is what we expect the PO to do, and then this is where we expect the business analyst to do. In most of the agile team where we have business analysts, some let the business analysts write the user stories because they feel they have a better understanding of it. Now, in some cases, although we have the business analyst as part of the team, the PO still write the user story because they have a better understanding of it. But then I've also seen a team where there's no PO, there's no business analyst, and the Scrum Master have to do all the work at the same time. So, what is important, I guess, for us is to kind of being able to capture where to actually situate the role of the business analyst. And then that can help us be conscious of how to coach a company who is expecting a business analyst to come in onto to what is that really specific role of the business analyst. Now, from my point of view, both on the practical and the theoretical part of view, the business analyst and the PO definitely sit in two different levels. Now, the PO is a specialized role for a Scrum team and support directly the Scrum team in ensuring that the Scrum team complete their work. But the business analysts sit across all the different layers of the company. So from the portfolio level to the program level to the team level in ensuring that we are transmitting value from one step to another. But then the PO, your role should end when you're communicating with the customer who gives you the requirements your team needs, right? So you're really focused around there. Yeah, but to be frank, you probably might not really get this clear cut definition when you look at the practical.
Yeah, that's a super important. That's really the heart of this conversation. That's a super important distinction you've made there, Dr. Francis. Uh, I think we have a few questions which I'll read uh, towards the end, just so we can go through this interesting conversation. And so we see that business analysts add value to agile environments. That's clear by now. We've not agreed to discard business analysts from agile. And so from this conversation, we can pick a few things. Business analysts help to clarify communication, clarify requirements, define user stories depending on the team, as Dr. Francis very well described. Visualizations when it comes to processes, works in the feedback loop, collecting feedback and making sure that that feedback serves as a basis for new iterations, helps to solve problems, collaborates with other people on workshops, and does a lot of documentation. So pretty much the business analyst serves as a bridge between technical and non-technical teams across the organization, not just on an agile project. And so let's tell you a quick story. The story of this restaurant called Spring Pizzeria. It's a made-up restaurant just for you guys. And so we want to tell the story of collaboration between the PO, Scrum Master, development team, and business analyst from the point of view of a restaurant. So Dr. Francis and I will be talking about different roles. So in Spring Pizzeria, it's a brand new restaurant which has just opened up somewhere on earth. And these are your employees. Now you have the software engineer, UX designer, product owner, Scrum Master, a programmer who is also, well, like a junior software engineer, a QA tester, and the business analyst. So we've agreed that we're not kicking out the business analysts from the team because they have a role to play. But now the question is, how do all these people collaborate? So in the context of this, restaurant, this Sprint Pizzeria, the PO is going to be the pizza brand manager. So this restaurant sells pizza. That's the product. But you know that we have different types of pizza, which are the brands. And so the product owner here is the brand manager. The brand manager works with the Scrum Master who is in charge of the kitchen. And so the development team is the kitchen crew, the programmers, the testers, the UX designers, the chefs, and all those people. Then you have the business analyst who is the collaborator by default. And so let's start going into collaboration. How does the business analyst collaborate with the product owner? So in the context of this story, this brand new restaurant, Spring Pizzeria, the brand manager would make the decision based on industry knowledge. They know the industry. They know what the customers want in terms of the types of pizza. Is it pepperoni? Is it vegan? Is it whatever kind of pizza? They know that kind of information. And so they will define the product vision, what the pizza needs to look like. They would maintain the product backlog when it comes to building that pizza. They would prioritize the features or the slices of the pizza. Is it 10? Is it 2? Whatever it is. And they would sequence it. The PO collaborates closely with the business analyst to understand the business requirements, translate them into actionable, user stories, and provide very clear direction for the development team. So this is how the product owner collaborates with the business analyst when it comes to the product, when it comes to the requirements, the user stories. Is there something else to add, Dr. Francis?
I think that's a very great analysis there, and it kind of gives us a very clear cut right there, right? We actually see that we actually see the big difference between the business analyst and the product owner right here. So the product owner, he understands every component that we need to make a very good pizza and how it needs to be built. But they might not be so much versed about the market out there, about the people, about the different customer, about their taste, about the biggest company who are having the orders and all of that. So the business analysts actually have a wider view, gather that information, and collaborate with the PO to make sure that the PO can do a very great job, right? So, and we actually see that our Scrum Master might not really have this knowledge out there, but need to talk with both the PO and the business analyst to understand what they are looking for so that he can now monitor what is happening within the different people that are engaged to make sure that they meet the customer expectation. Right. Now, this go to answer the question a lot of Scrum Master asks. Am I supposed to know the product? Okay. Now, there is no way you would talk with the PO and with the business analyst and then working with these people in the kitchen and you say you don't know the product. You might not be doing it, but you're observing and you should be aware of the product. Maybe not the first day, but by the second, third day, by you asking the questions and having conversation with them, you should be aware of what they're doing. Yeah.
Amazing. So speaking of Scrum Masters, that's the most visible, the most well-known role in an agile team. And how does a business analyst collaborate with the Scrum Master? So the Scrum Master in this analogy of a restaurant is like the kitchen manager. So the kitchen manager ensures smooth operations, schedules, making sure that things are on time, removes obstacles. The dishwasher is not working in the kitchen. Okay, let's make sure it's fixed. We don't have ingredients. Okay, let's make sure it's there. and all of that. So they facilitate the agile process. They ensure that the Scrum team follows the rules, adheres to agile principles, and it's pretty much a facilitation role. And so uh, I understand that Scrum Masters perform in some companies much more than what we just mentioned. But typically, this is what we expect to see when it comes to a Scrum Master, as Dr. Francis mentioned. And so they collaborate with business analysts to ensure that the development process, in our case, cooking the pizza, aligns with the project goals and objectives. And so there is some collaboration work to be done there. The last group which we've not talked about is the development team. And so I'll bring you in, Dr. Francis. The kitchen crew, as I call them, is made up of, you know, those people in the background whom we don't see, the, you know, software engineer, the programmers, the user experience, you know, designer, the tester, those doing QA. So all those people work in the background to make sure that your pizza looks well from a user experience perspective, it tastes good from a quality perspective, and it's cooked from an engineering perspective. And so how do you see them collaborating with business analysts, Dr. Francis?
All right. So in most of the cases in a practical environment, they might not have really so much point based with the business analyst, except the business analyst is the one in charge in creating the stories. Now, even when I've seen the business analyst actually writing the stories, the PO still maintain that contact with the team to facilitate the processes. So you might not really have so much engagement, except during when we are doing the planning, and in case they require a clarification of the business expectation, then the business analyst or the PO might step in to give this clarification based on who have like the most content of it. Right. Now, the reason why I say based on who have the content authority, I've also seen a team with a business analyst and the PO, but the engineering lead is the one who have the content authority. So
That's
the
interesting.
PO and the business analysts are just there as the figurehead, right?
Yes.
Maybe they have other duty. But if you want to ask any question about the story they're working on, the epic they're working on, the engineering lead is the one who will give you the answer, right?
Mm.
So that balance kind of come in. Now, the reason we're also doing this is because most of those who are getting into the field, they try to bring the theory into the practice. And now they're trying to fit that theory
Right.
into the space. And it's like, oh, I thought it should be this. Oh, this is an anti-pattern because I read this and then I'm seeing this. Now, there are two different ways, and which is why we encourage people to practice and actually joining webinars like this, you get to learn a lot, but also getting into coaching community where you can get some hands-on experience and learn from other people. It's one of the best things you can give yourself while you are working towards this career journey.
Amazing. And so,
Yeah.
since we're talking about collaborations, business analysis, and development, and the development team, let's carry on in that same vein. So, the business analyst, from what I understand, from what we're seeing, is the ultimate collaborator. So, the business analyst is not the main person on an agile project, but has a pretty significant role to play. They would work with product owners to, you know, craft the user stories and requirements. They'll work with the development team if that team is set up to function like that. They'll, you know, you can see the developers there on their third pizza release. And business analysts would collaborate with Q&A. I've seen so many scenarios where business analysts, especially in small companies, where one person wears many hats. So the business analyst plays the role of a proxy PO, and also the Q&A person. So once the release, once the feature is ready for testing, uh, the business analyst would have to come and test it out and validate before
Yeah.
it's actually released. So is that something? Are you seeing people wearing many hats, Dr. Francis? How does it look like practically?
Yeah, that's a very common practice within the Agile field. And yeah, so physically, you probably might not see them really come in front to interact. But we all know that when we build code or when we build product, it's hosted in an environment, right? So they go in and do their checks to also validate. You might not actually see them, but then that collaboration on them trying to go and trying to review the work and also make sure that it meets the business requirement. It's okay. Now, sometimes, okay, when we deploy from after we build and we move it to production or to the hosting environment, there the while we are doing the integration testing and doing the user acceptance testing, now the business analyst is more visible there because at that point we are playing more of how the customer receives it. Like you can see at the point the BA trying to really look at the quality to see, okay, this look good, but is it how the customer will like to really present this? And that's why sometimes it might kick it back to the team and say, oh, can you add one more code to this so that we have this, right? And we start having um, more other user stories that we want to build as add-on. Oh, we had one new requirement come in for this. Now that's using the business analyst. Now it doesn't mean that we did not write it well. Sometimes when we start visualizing the final product, an idea might come in, or the customer might like, okay, I want to add one more of these because I see a shift between these. So you definitely have all of that coming in. Yeah. And you also see cases where even at the user acceptance testing, they might invite the Scrum Master to come in. Okay, we have a couple of questions for you. Can you jump into this meeting? And you should be able to jump in there and support your team.
Amazing. And so let's keep going. So one of the main questions which I usually have from my own angle as a business analyst, one of the main questions is, okay, I've been assigned, my students will ask me that all the time. I've been assigned to an agile project. There is a product owner, there's a scrum master. I don't know what to do. And I would ask them, what were you assigned to do? That's where you should start from. And they would read the assignment, but it looks very similar to what the product owner has to perform. And so they will be afraid of conflict. They'll be afraid of maybe responsibilities that are not very clear. And so I found this image from one of our friends and partners, Adaptive US. Um, which sort of differentiates between business analysis and product ownership in a very nice way. It's not, again, it's straight line, it's not black and white, it crisscrosses in a lot of spaces. But the main thing here is that the business analyst would mainly focus on requirements and what is right for stakeholders in general. Remember what Dr. Francis mentioned, that the business analyst cuts across levels of the organization. The product owner focuses on the product roadmap. What is my product and who is my customer? And so they will do customer liaison, but the main focus here is, okay, is the product right for my customers? Is the product right for my users? Uh, that's a very simple, distinction, but it fits the purpose because we're talking about a brand new restaurant. So in line with that story, you could keep it that simple. Some people have asked this question, okay, if a scrum master can be a product owner and a business analyst, if a business analyst can be a product owner, if the product owner can be a business analyst, if anybody can just walk into the kitchen and wear any jacket and be the chef and be the tester, anybody can walk into the restaurant and say, today I'm the kitchen manager. Uh, why do we need to have a business analyst on an agile team? And so, for many reasons, Dr. Francis mentioned changing requirements. So, of course, requirements do change because human beings are creative. So when I sleep and I wake up in the morning, I have new ideas of doing things. I have new ways of doing the same thing which I've been doing for 50 years. And so we're creative. So we're open to changing our minds. The tasks that need to be done, sometimes even for the best Scrum Masters, they're not always able to, put it in a way that could be finished in 2 weeks or so, if that's the time for the sprint. And so that's where you start seeing that a business analyst who is going to put on, an independent third party hat would be helpful because they'll be able to say, for FYI, maybe we've missed this, maybe we need to see this in this way. That input is very, very important because we want to succeed on the product. We don't want to fail. Sometimes people say things in terms of ideas and it just gets lost because nobody's documenting it. Sometimes the team is not aligned. The product owner doesn't see eye to eye with the Scrum Master. And depending on organizations, I've seen one where the Scrum Master was one of the company directors, but on the project, he's the Scrum Master. And the product owner is an employee that actually reports to the director every day. But then on the project, the product owner has to lead the Scrum Master. And so how do you collaborate? Eventually, this product owner in that I'm referring to was let go because they couldn't see eye to eye. But you have situations where, okay, the team is not really aligned. Somebody has got to come in who's neutral and ensure that, collaboration continues. And so you have all of those areas of collaboration as to why we need to have business analysts on the team. Dr. Francis, what do you think?
Yeah, it's often a very difficult situation when you have to go through. Now, my take on this is where your emotional intelligence comes in, or what we call your business acumen comes in, right? And I always coach anyone going into the agile field, whether you're a business analyst, you are a scrum master, you are a PO. It's about observe, listen, ask questions before you act. Now, some people go in, and I had a conversation with someone, just a couple of days back, because now I'm doing a lot of free one-on-one coaching, and I'm so surprised what people go through. Now, they got into a team, and then they said, okay, based on my observation, I think this team should not be Scrum, it should be Kanban. And they changed the team to a Kanban team in less than 3 months. And by the 6 months, they were fired. Right. So now, okay, this is you bringing in maybe knowledge you have from somewhere else and thinking, okay, I see A, B, C, D. Right. And I have a lot of my students that are like, oh, the management is expecting a lot from me. They want me to do this. They want me to do this. I said, okay, you are a coach. As a Scrum Master, you are a coach. As a business analyst, you're not just an implementer, you're a coach. As a product owner, that's why these are like specialized roles, which means that you have the power to tell them, okay, look, I would like to do this, but if we do A, B, C, we'll get result C. So it's not yet time to do A, B, C, because if we do it now, we'll get result F, and this is not going to work for us. You still want us to go ahead and do this, right? I have one of my students, they got in, their manager said, we want A, we want B, we want C, we want D. I said, okay, the reason they say that is because you don't have an opinion. I said, okay, observe with the team, talk to the team, get their opinion, present this to your manager. I had a conversation with A, B, C, D. Based on this information I gathered, we cannot do a quick change right now. First, we're going to lose trust with the team. Secondly, I have not had enough data to verify if this is working or not. And when they gave that feedback, I asked them, please, can you recommend more people from the company you're coming in from? Now, in that case, It's about, you can be working with a PO, and that PO is your manager, or that PO might not be a manager, but that PO has been in that company for 25 years and has the power to write a sentence and you're out. So you need to be sensitive, not just by title, but by understanding who people are.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just play along, not because it's the right thing, but that's the right thing for that environment. So I will say your business acumen and your emotional intelligence, don't leave it out and take the Scrum hat or the business analyst hat or the product owner hat. It all come with our leadership skills.
Amazing. So, in some scenarios, the product owner doubles as the product manager, which is
Yeah.
another role, another level. It depends, really. But ultimately, the roles of PO, BA, you can see clearly that they are very distinct. They fulfill unique purposes, they are there for reasons. And while the same person could possess skills for both roles, organization, if the organizational structure permits, one person can perform all of those roles, or they could be separate and they could coexist. But it's very important to check with the organizational dynamics. And in terms of collaboration, it's always best to be mindful of things like your emotional intelligence, like Dr. Francis mentioned, and just a general sense of what's happening there right now. So a perfect team doesn't exist, uh, but then there are so many roles. So today we're focusing on business analysts and product owners as they collaborate with each other and with the rest of the agile team. Uh, One title that you start seeing very often out there is proxy PO. That's another title for business analyst, especially with smaller companies where the BA is the PO at the same time. And if the BA has the title of business analyst, then they also have a title of proxy PO. So PO by proxy next to the PO or something of that sort. And so it really depends, but it's in order for you to be effective, uh, it's very important to understand the differences between the roles so that you can know how to add value. Because if you don't know the differences between the roles, who does what, it's almost going to be impossible for you to add value as a contributor of the team. And so I like this slide, Dr. Francis. It speaks to some of the things that you've already mentioned at the portfolio level, the program level, and the team level. When you talked about the PO being a specialized role versus the BA, business analyst, cutting across the organization. Now we really see it here. So for example, this would be an example of an agile team here, where you have a typical tester, developer, the development team, the scrum master, and the product owner. So at this level, you're not really seeing the business analyst. But if you take it a step higher, there you go. You have the business analyst. So there you're talking about scale. You're talking about multiple systems together. It's much more complex here, and you have to be much more careful here. The people here are a lot more senior than the ones here. Their view is a lot more broad, and here is where you have the leadership team, who of course have an eye on the product and on everything agile. But speak to us a little bit about this structure, Dr. Francis.
Okay, so that would be the typical structure in a scale environment. If you work in an environment, small companies, you probably would just have just the first layer, the team. At the second layer, you have just your manager, so you would not have a lot of complexity. But the reason why I think we started by me saying that scale agile it's one of the fastest growing because also the small companies are growing to the bigger companies, right? So which is the reason why you should also really consider that while you're building your career path. Now at the level of programming, now I just want to talk from the top down. At the top an idea come up, right? Let's start take the the case of our restaurant. Someone created the idea and like, oh, we can actually do this. And when they think it's a good idea, they get it to a couple of people who can sit down and strategize and bring in some practicality of what they have observed in the field. That's at program level. And then when they figure out that, yes, this can actually work, what happened? They bring in the people who can actually do the work, which is at the team level. So all of this is just the difference in decision making. And now you realize that those who are the portfolio, they're more of just idea. We have this idea. Where do we get the money from? They put the money. Then when they put the money, they hire the strategy and the core team, the manager, the accountant, the business analyst, the people who kind of help them put them together, the lawyers and all of that. And then they say, okay, we got all the paperwork right. We got all the framework right. Let's get the team that will do the work. And then the Scrum team come into place. But you realize when the team come into place, they expect the team to pivot back and understand the vision behind why they are there so that they can perform well. The fact that the team come in last doesn't mean that they don't need to go back and understand the product roadmap and understand the vision, which is why anytime you want to get into any company or interview for any company, you have to do your assignment. Right, this is what they're looking for. They're looking not just for people who know how to do it, but people who understand the reason why they exist and how they can be able to buy into that vision.
Amazing. So the conversation is really super interesting. I'll just keep it going for those who want to stick around. We would answer your questions at the end of the conversation, and that's a promise. And so those of you who have questions about, okay, I'm a product owner, what's my next step? What's my next move? I'm a Scrum Master, what do I do next? I'm a business analyst, what do I do next? I'm a project manager, oh, I'm a manager, a product manager, and all of that. I'm a software developer, quality analyst. Whatever your role on this chart, the beauty of working in an agile team is that you can always step into any role depending on your skill set. So don't be surprised to see a Scrum Master becoming a project manager, because while you were a Scrum Master, you've probably developed project management skills. So it's easy for you to transition into project management if that's your next career move. You could also see a product owner transitioning into a product manager, or into a project manager, or into a business analyst, or even into a systems architect. It depends on the skills that you have built, on the exposure that you have had while you've been performing your work. And so you're not limited. That's the beauty of working in Agile. You're not limited to one specific career path. There are recommended paths and there are obvious paths, but they are not linear. So you can get from anywhere to anywhere, and that makes it very beautiful. Dr. Francis told us about the skilled environments, the skilled frameworks, whereby people could, get to a level of independence where they could even become, entrepreneurs, coaches, trainers, based on some of those frameworks that they are learning. And so in terms of career opportunities, the market is very open. I also wanted to mention that we would be sharing a few market research reports which show different salaries per role and different opportunities and different industries for you to benefit, just so you can see and have an idea of your next career move. And speaking of industries, Agile was first of all something confined or limited to software development, but it has expanded beyond software development to be utilized in all of these industries and more. These are just some of the ones that we've captured so far. The key words here are that although so many industries are practicing Agile, it's still heavily focused on software. So you can see the use cases here with the keywords: website, it's a software; records, that's data; software, features, games, that's a software; e-learning platforms, that's a software; and applications. And so, yes, the government is trying to, deploy skilled agile frameworks. Agriculture companies are utilizing applications that have been developed based on agile frameworks. Even the implementation is based on agile. Uh, but then agile is still a very heavily software related methodology. And some of the top industries that utilize agile would be right here. So the typical software development companies like the Microsofts, like the SAPs, all of those companies that make software, Epicor and all of that. You have IT companies, Google, Facebook, and all of those IT companies. Um, you have finance and banking. A lot of banks and financial companies are moving towards agile environments. They have a lot of applications they are putting out there, and of course, healthcare. So, Dr. Francis, what are you seeing when it comes to industries? What other use cases exist?
Most of the top, you've listed them there. We've seen a lot of traction from the banks, and we can understand why, right? The need to constantly update the security system, make sure that it's secure for everybody. We also seen, or what we also going to see very big in the near future, it's also the government in a bid to provide more accessibility to the community. They're also trying to digitalize most of their systems. So you're seeing a lot of state now trying to push into the agile system. We also see even the military, right? The militaries are also going deep into agile. So it's something which is kind of moving gradually into deeper industry. It's really big in the North America and pushing through into the UK now. And Europe is picking up. South Africa is also going big on agile now, and subsequently other people are going to take it. Why? Agile is not just a method, it's an approach to get your business position in times of hardship. So that's what many companies don't yet realize. So for some companies, it's just like, oh, safe doesn't make sense, Scrum doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. But it has nothing to do with save less or so. It has more to how can I help my company position for the rainy days. Now, which of these framework help me? And that goes now based on the scale at which you're actually producing. That will help you to know which one is a better fit. It's like we're using a software, right? You cannot be a very small company and then you want to use a software that can deploy thousands employee when you have just one. That's waste of. You wouldn't actually see any use there, right? But then it's just about finding what fits for you. But almost every industry that is finding value and that is picking um, a point in the market wants to go agile. So just be on the lookout for those who are in the career. It's not saturated. We have not even started. Now the big problem is that we don't have enough skillful people yet. And because so many people are going into the market who do not have the skill, now the turnaround to find the right candidate now has increased. But they are longing for people. I can imagine like almost every day I get several calls from the same company. Oh, we have a position here, we have a position here. So it's still out there. Build your skills, position yourself well, and trust me, it's just a matter of time for you to get in.
Amazing. I did see a few questions here in the chat box. Thank you to all of you who have taken time to send us those questions. So from Tolulope Dada, can the BA be said to be part of the developer in a Scrum team? What do you think, Doc? Can the business analyst be part of the developer or maybe development team?
Yeah, most often they're classified as part of the development team.
Okay.
Since Scrum only recommend two specialty roles, the product owner and the Scrum Master. So any other role is added to the development team.
as a supporting role.
Yes.
Good. Uh, I see you answered this. What's the difference between backlog refinement and backlog refinement grooming and and product backlog refinement? So you answered that already. Any Scrum team member who is neither the PO nor the Scrum Master is categorized under the development team. I think that's an answer from Stanley, which is the same thing that you mentioned. Thank you, Stanley, for that answer. Uh, what's the difference between the software development life cycle and the product life cycle? Doc, you can take that one.
Okay, so when we talk about the software development cycle, we're talking about the stages through which every software goes through. Right. It goes through requirement gathering, we plan it, then we build it, we test it, and we send it to the user. Right. Now, the product life cycle goes beyond the software development life cycle. Right. When we complete building the product, what happened? It goes to the end user. So there are other processes that still happen until the product finally go to the end of life. So the software development lifecycle is what happened when we are building. The product lifecycle, when we build it, what happened even when it get to the customer. Then we're talking about the product lifecycle.
Thank you, Edith Smith, for that question. Are you recording this section? Yes, we recorded everything. We're going to put it on Lacroix Institute of Technology's YouTube page, on Lacroix's website, on the YouTube pages and website for Radar Education. And if you follow myself or Dr. Francis, you would see the links to these conversations somewhere on the internet. So don't worry about it. Somebody says that's Israel. I didn't get the real difference between Analyst de données and Analyst TI. Is that the same thing? Yes, Israel. I think there's some French there to your question. So Analyst de données, Analyst TI. So Analyst de données is a data analyst. Analyst TI is an IT analyst. Now it depends on. In some companies, a data analyst does the same thing as a business analyst. They actually call the same. But at base, a data analyst works on data, spreadsheets, data, and database systems. An IT analyst is usually a business analyst who works with requirements beyond data. So that's a very high level kind of overview. But they're not the same, so they are different. Yes, they are different. Will you be able to share the presentation deck, please? Tolulope, yes, we would share the presentation and more. So if you go to your messages right here, we have two documents there for you. We have a career starting guide for those who are just starting out and need to know, okay, what do I do within the first 90 days? So we've put it there for you. And you also have an ebook on agile management in general, which touches more in detail on some of the things we've discussed here. And we will also share this presentation with you by email for those who, well, all of you registered. Using the restaurant example, that's from Silvanus Ejim. Can you illustrate or take us through traceability and monitoring evaluation process? Doc, can you answer that quickly?
Okay. When you talk about, let me kind of just reread the question again, just to make sure I captured it. When you talk about traceability and monitoring evaluation phases, now we're going now to pure project management. This is no longer agile. Now in agile, we're going to talk about matrices and evaluation. In project management, we're going to talk about traceability, monitoring, evaluation phases. Why is there a difference? It's a difference because in Waterfall, which is pure project management, we don't actually have this constant feedback and interaction with the customer. So we need to go into detail to kind of trace every process from step to step and monitor it and report it to the client because the client is not engaged. Right. Now, why in the agile field, the client comes in every intermittently to have this conversation. So let's assume that we actually was doing our pizza restaurant where our client will not be engaged in the entire process. So what will happen is that we need to be able to document all the transitions that are happening, all the challenges that are happening while we're unable to deliver, all the complaints that are happening. We document them, and then we write out method or approaches that we want to use to solve this problem in order to be submitted to our client when we are submitting our end of project report to them. So
Amazing.
that's the easiest way I can explain that.
Yeah. Uh, would you recommend a Scrum Master to study Scrum Master, PO, business analysis courses with the increasing demand of organizations? Dr. Francis answered that question beautifully about the opportunities. We also put up a chart about the different opportunities. In a nutshell, you can do any of them, depends on your aptitude. What are you able to study? What are you able to, develop at? So you can start from anywhere. But if you have maybe a point to add about where do I start from, Dr. Francis?
Yeah, so where do I start from? Start from your point of interest. Now, when you're looking at a career based on where to start from, the 3 point you pay attention to. You're paying attention to number one, passion. You're paying attention to number two, potential. And you're paying attention to number three, purpose. Right. And the most important stuff that empowers everything is the purpose. What is the purpose for me taking this? Don't take it because someone said, oh, Scrum is easier than BA is easier than product owner. Your potential based on your background, based on your capability to drive you towards which one is good. Now you can make a very good career in any of these if you actually see beyond just the job. Right now, if you start with the let's say a Scrum Master, I always recommend get the PO and the BA. Now we have the opportunity for you to get a BA. Now the reason why the BA getting also the PO and the BA or any valuable certification as a pack now is because we now constantly see role where they want someone that can wear multiple hats. We have a lot of our working Scrum Masters, they don't have a PO in their team. They work as a PO and most Scrum team don't hire a BA, but they expect you to understand all the business requirement and to give those feedback to the recruiter. Not that you need all of them to get a job, but it helps you stand out as a better candidate and to perform well at your workplace.
Amazing. Aaron, I think you have your answer. Uh, Thanks, guys. Hugs from Brazil. Thank you, Dennis, for joining us. You'll get the recording for the remainder of the session. Uh, there's always an overstep between PO, BA, and Scrum Master. Yes, we've talked about the overlap between those roles. That's from Alhaji Kalon. Can a Scrum Master double up to a product owner? Yes, you can. We've answered that question. Oluwatosin Adigoke, thank you for that question. Thanks for the very insightful session. How can we get the presentation deck, please? Thank you, Tolulope. You've been very active, so we would personally get in touch with you to answer other questions if you have. You would definitely get the deck. I have my resume as a Scrum Master. My recruiters keep sending me business analyst position. Does that mean they don't read what's on my resume? What do you think, Doc? That's from Dilly Stakan.
Okay. I would say almost everybody is gearing towards Scrum, right? Because they feel Scrum is kind of easier. And also, if you have a business analyst position on your resume, they also see you as the best fit there, right? So I would not say there's a problem wrong with that. What you should do is you should now focus more on applying on Scrum rules. The one they send to you, it's most often when you get on their broadcast list, they send you almost every stuff. Sometimes you can even receive offer for developer job, but
Right.
just focus on what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we've answered all of the questions. I have a raised hand from Ben Roland Shibwaba. Ben, are you there? Do you want to ask something? Okay. So if you have a question, you can feel free to let Dr. Francis and I know after this meeting. And so in order to contact us, you have it on the website, on the screen, you have the website, phone, and email. If you're trying to start or develop your career, for those of you who had questions in business analysis, data analysis, or product ownership, you can contact us. If you also are thinking of starting a career in Agile or Scrum, you can contact us so that we can refer you to Dr. Francis, or you can contact Dr. Francis directly. We focus mostly on business analysis, data analysis, and product ownership, everything that's under the IIBA. We also have just started a course in artificial intelligence, Agile in general, and enterprise systems like ERP and CRM. If your organization is asking you to specialize, if you're seeing that you're implementing AI systems, let us know so we can help you get prepared for your next role as an AI Scrum Master, as an AI product owner, as an AI business analyst, or as maybe a business analyst that implements ERP systems. Any of those specialties, you can contact us for that. Stay tuned for our next webinar, which will be in 2 or 3 weeks. We have webinars like these every month, and so stay tuned for our next webinar. We will surely have more discussions with Dr. Francis.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simo, for that insightful conversation, and Lacroix Institute for putting this brilliant presentation together. For everyone, make sure that you do actually get a copy. This is something you hardly get out there. And I would encourage also to reach out to expand your knowledge on business analysis. Talk to the Lacroix Institute, and you will definitely get the best. Trust me. I've worked with Dr. Simo for many years now. How many years? More than 4 years now. So
Yes.
It's been a long way, and I can confidently recommend. He's a very detailed person, straight to the point. It will be someone you want to really work with him. Thank you very much for this invitation, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Francis Bunia. And so that's it. We've wrapped it up.